It's working now. Do you hear anybody? Oh, you hear me if I turn the right side up. I have to see the light, the whites of the eyes of Father Bernard Gorges. I'm not sure where he is. He is our first speaker. You cannot hear me? Oh, there he is. Father, how do I work this microphone? He wants to eat. You can hear me if I just move it up close to my mouth? All right. Well, I have a secret for you. I had a very important list of welcoming remarks that you need. You cannot hear me. Now I'll turn it on. Try that one. Okay. Is this one any better? Do you want this one at all? Okay. Was it a good one? Was it? Oh, no. There you go. All right. Is this working okay? All right. I have a secret to tell you. I had my important welcoming remarks of things you need to know before this conference starts, and my introductions for my speakers tonight. And I set my box down to help someone in the grass, and it blew across. It must be in western Wichita somewhere now. So as soon as Father starts talking, his is recorded so I can check later if he said everything okay, and then we'll discuss him later. I will run home and get those because there are some important points that you should know. Father Bernard Gorges is the pastor of this immense, wonderful campus. And as you can see, this is a large school with many children, and this is a parish. I don't know, what's the statistic, Father? Is it 40% or 50% under 20? Something like that. Close. It changes every year depending on how many babies are born. So this is a very young parish, and Father is very devoted to the young people. And they come to daily Mass, and he preaches to them about Mary, and he started a youth program, Totus Tuus, to get them to consecrate themselves to Mary. And he is here often, regularly, to hear the children's confessions, class by class. He knows the hearts of the youth. And he's going to talk to us about something we don't think about very much, and that is the enlightenment of consciences will also touch our youth. And so I would like him to begin the opening remarks tonight, and he always is a wonderful preacher.
Thank you, Sister. Again, my name is Father Bernie Gorges, and I am the pastor here at St. Peter. And it is an honor to be here and also to see you here. Again, dealing with all the COVID and all this whatever. This room, normally we can fill in at least 450 some people, but we're only 1/3 of that size right here, or less than 1/3 of that size, according to state guidelines. So it is a thank you for coming out. And thank you for being here. And just want you to know that the entire campus, we sanitize it every 5 minutes. Almost literally. After every gathering that we have over at the church, there are folks that go in there and we sanitize it after every gathering. So I want you to know that you're safe here. After we leave tonight, we'll probably sanitize all this whole room again. So just know that you're safe here. I want everybody to know that we're doing everything possible for safety. And when we go into the church, and you may have noticed if you were here earlier, there are the spaces that were for large families. And Sister mentioned we have large families. So there's not maybe a social distancing that we see in the first few pews. But the rest of the church is separated with social distancing. So when we go to the church, feel free to go anywhere you feel comfortable. Towards the front is more for the larger families. As Sister was mentioning, we have a strange parish here. We have 576 families. That's the size of our parish. Now, those of you, can I get a hand raised? How many of you from Wichita diocese? Oh, that's quite a few. Quite a few. Beautiful. Is anybody here from St. Francis of Assisi Parish? Okay. You have about 25 to 2,700 families. All right. You are 4.5 times larger than we are. Is anybody here from St. Elizabeth Ann Seton in Wichita, West Wichita? Okay. You are 4 times larger than we are. So you have about 23 to 2,400 families. You have twice as many children as we do in your school. Now, I want to stop here for a second. You are 4.5 times larger, and you have twice as many students. That means we have lots of babies here, okay? So we are 1/2 your size with 1/2 our size of our school, and a quarter is, we're the quarter size of your parish. So we have 38.8% of our parish right here at St. Peter is 18 years old and younger. That's 40% is 18 years old and younger. 73.3% of this parish is 49 years old and younger. We are surrounded by many starter homes, and so it's again, this is the place to be when you're starting your family. It's very cheap living. Now, why do I use these two figures? Why do I use these two filters? 18 years old and 49 years old. 18 years old on down, they give nothing. Okay? 0. 49 years old and under, well, you guys know, you don't have any money till you're 50. So that's what we're dealing with here. So we have 329 kids in our school, and we have about 117 over at Bishop Carroll. And those of you who are not from Wichita Diocese, I'll give you just a brief introduction to our program. We have, the Wichita Diocese is the southeast 25 counties of the state of Kansas. In these 25 counties, we have 94 parishes. In the 94 parishes, we operate 34 grade schools, 18 junior highs, and 4 high schools. We have a total of 10,355 students in our diocese. That's COVID numbers, pre-COVID. And I don't know what we have now. But anyway, so 10,300. We are the 8th largest school district in the state of Kansas. Okay? So imagine that size, all right? Now, with all that, imagine all these students, 71.5% of all the Catholics in our diocese are in one county, Sedgwick County. So we have 100, and I think, don't quote me on this, please, 109 active priests, and we have 35% of those priests. I think there's 36 of us priests serving Sedgwick County, and the rest serve the other 24 counties. All right. So, I mean, there's just a large Catholic focus right here in Sedgwick County. And those of you who are watching this from is anybody here from East Wichita? Good, I can offend you. We always have this tension, east side, west side. I mean, it's silly because all of our Capon students end up marrying our Carroll students, and our Carroll students end up marrying our Capon students. But anyway, we have mixed households. But anyway, mixed religions. But anyway, the west side is probably about 35% Catholic, maybe. East side is probably just a smidget underneath there, maybe 20%. Or something like that. So, again, don't quote me on those numbers necessarily, but Sedgwick County is a very populated Catholic county. And so I want to welcome you. This is my whole welcome. I want to welcome you not only to the Wichita Diocese, I want to welcome you to Sedgwick County, and I want to welcome you to St. Peter's, which is the best parish of all of the parishes here. Anyway, so I always call this the Holy Land because wherever I'm at, that's the Holy Land. But one of the things, we have 10,355 students, and with this, we ask for no tuition. Those of you who are not of our diocese, we have a program called the Catholic Stewardship Family Program. Catholic Stewardship families, we ask them to be active in their parish. We ask them to give of their time, their talent, and their treasure. We ask the family to give anywhere between 5 and 8%, and if they can, 10%, of course. That's a tithe. But we start people out where they're at, especially young couples. We start them out where they're at, and we try to grow them, into full stewardship families. And so we take the tithe that we have received, and with that tithe, they are given the gift of the proclamation of the gospel. And Bishop Gerber, when he started this program, he said the best way to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ is through Catholic education. And so that proclamation of the gospel, the mission of the church, is fulfilled through Catholic education. And so we ask that all Catholic stewardship families enroll their students into our schools. And that is a great privilege that they have received because they are the active Catholic families. So with those 10,355 students, very few pay tuition. We have a few non-Catholic students that go to our schools. Very few pay tuition. So it is all, the parishes pay the tuition. And so Bishop Gerber's thought was that no matter who you are, no matter what financial situation you might be in, your children will have the opportunity to go and receive the gospel of Jesus Christ through Catholic education. And so that was, I believe, 1984, 1985, somewhere in there. And so I want to, even though rest his soul, I want to thank Bishop Gerber for establishing this so that all families, no matter what situation or status, financial status they might have, that their children could go to school and receive that gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, again, I used to teach at that high school on the east side. I forget what it's called. God love you, folks. Anyway, I taught at Cape of Mount Carmel for 3 years, and a beautiful, beautiful school. Bishop Carroll is on the west side. It's a beautiful, beautiful school. We have another high school down at Cogan at St. Mary's in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And then we have another high school at called Trinity in Hutchinson. So those are our 4 high schools. So I want to begin there because I have been active in youth ministry probably since I was probably about 18 years old. And it just so happened that I was called on by this old farmer. This farmer was my 7th grade religion teacher. Oh, by the way, I never stepped foot in a Catholic school till I went to seminary. And then I questioned it. But anyway, so I never stepped foot in a Catholic school till I went to seminary. So I had no experience of Catholic school. And so we had a religious ed program called CCD. Does anybody remember CCD, Confraternity of Catholic Doctrine? And so we called it CCD. And I was 17 years old, and I really, let me make a short story long. Because Sister started me 10 minutes early. Because I was not done with my fish taco yet. Matter of fact, the first for me, I've never had a fish taco before. So I had my first one tonight, or first 7, I think. I had those tonight. But I never stepped foot in a Catholic school. And so when I was 17 years old, we gathered with the priest at my small little farm town parish, just right down the road, 7 miles, big booming metropolis called Clonmel. Population 1. And that's the priest that lives there. Right now, Clonmel has grown. It has 16 zip codes going to its parish. It has a total of about 200 families. So it's almost, it's increased probably, I don't know, it was about 120 families when I was there. It's almost doubled. So when I was there as a child. There was a family that moved in when I was in high school, and after 15 years, we still called them the new family. Anyway, we're very welcoming German family, a parish there, yeah. You're welcoming, yeah. But anyway, so the guy that taught me 7th grade religion, or CCD, he catches me when I'm 18 years old, and he says, Bernie, would you mind taking my CCD class for me? And I said, well, sure. I said, well, what for? He says, well, I got to sow wheat for 2 weeks or whatever. Just take 2 weeks of it. And so I said, okay, yeah, sure, I'll work that out. So I took the Wednesday night off, and I started teaching the 7th graders. And when I started teaching them, I was so nervous, whatever, I'm 18 years old, and I'm so nervous getting ready to teach them. I looked at the book, and I kind of prepared something. I didn't know what I was doing or whatever. And as I was teaching them, I looked at their faces, and they were just as bored as I was when I was 7th grade. And I thought, I can't do that. Because I know how torturous it was, I'd much rather be out milking cows. But anyway, so I was like, So I took the book, and I slung it over my shoulder. And I said, what do you want to talk about? And so they started like, they always wanted to know about devils and angels or whatever. Okay, so devils. Okay, I wrote that on the board. And then somebody said, well, I want to talk about that. I said, well, if you're going to talk about that, you better talk about baptism or something like that, okay? So they want to talk about something else, about drug use or whatever, alcohol, whatever. I said, well, if we talk about that, we better talk about sin and confession. And pretty soon, so I wrote all these things on the board, all these little topics, and I said, let's put them in order. So I went, and it was exactly what the book had. All right? It was about the creed. It was what do we really believe? How do we celebrate our faith? How do we live our faith? And how do we strengthen our faith? And so I took those subjects and I rewrote them in the order we were going to do. So we started with the creed, we started with then the sacraments, then the morality, then we did whatever. And these kids, and it was fun because we didn't use any book. Praise God, I had an experience when I was 17 that kind of woke me up. Am I making that cameraman nervous? Do you mind if I pace? Because I have a pacemaker. Anyway, so what was amazing is that I was 17 years old, and Father invited us all together into his house. He was going to have a talk for us about matrimony. And we were juniors and seniors at the time. I was a junior. And so he says, okay, let's start by saying the Apostles' Creed. So we all made the sign of the cross. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven, earth. We all kind of went silent. And we're 17, 18-year-olds. Except for one girl, Suzanne. She's our 4th grade teacher here now. She was my grade. Anyway, she just went. Anyway, because she went to Catholic school for 6 years, But anyway, so annoying. But anyway, so Father got so mad at us. He got so mad at us, he says, get out. He says, if you don't even know the basic principles of our faith, get out of here. You're wasting my time. Oh, well, I was a German. Well, I still am. But anyway, that just made me so angry. He kicked us out. We walked out into the parking lot. We opened up our tailgates because we didn't have to go home for another hour, right? So we opened up our tailgates, opened our coolers, and we drank the rest of the night. Oh, I was mad at Father. But anyway, so that night I knelt down at my bedside because I didn't know the Apostles' Creed at 17 years old. And I grabbed this old dusty book called the Baltimore Catechism. And I dusted that off of one of the mom's shelves, and I went over it, and I went over it, and I went over it, and over it, and over it. 45 minutes I kept going over it, and praise God, in 45 minutes I memorized that prayer, and I have it to this day. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is it awakened something in me that I knew nothing about my faith. And when you look at the Baltimore Catechism, I think it's number 3, number 6, I forget now. But anyway, it says, why did God make you? God made you to know him, love him, and serve him. And so know, love, and serve God. You have to know God first before you can love him. And if you don't know your faith, you're not going to fall in love with your faith. And how can you love the faith if you don't how can you serve the faith if you don't love it? So this was the great tragedy that I experienced when I was 17 years old. I don't know my faith. And again, because of my pride, I said, I never will let a priest do that to me again. And so I memorized everything I could get my hands on. And I started reading, and I started reading, and I started reading. And the more I learned about the faith, the more I fell in love with the faith. The more I learned about my God, the more I fell in love with my God. And the more I fell in love with my God, I started having this itch in the back of my head that says, what are you going to do? How are you going to serve me? And so when I stepped into that room with 7th graders, what got me the most was I was connecting with them. And it kind of freaked me out. And I married off. There was like, I think I had 12 students, and I married off 7 of them. It's kind of fun. But what's amazing is that there was something, I was having an impact, and they were making headway. They enjoyed the class. So after 2 weeks, this old farmer came back to me, and he says, hey, Bernie, he says, I'm ready to take the class, but he says, what I've been hearing, he says, you're a hell lot better than I am. He said, I've been teaching this for 117 years, and just wondering maybe, how about you take it over? So I worked it out a deal with my family, and I said, okay, yeah. So I taught for the next 4 years. Until I went to seminary. You've heard the axiom before, right? If you want to learn something, teach it. So the more I began to teach the students, whatever, the more I began to learn. And the more I began to teach, I began to learn more. And the more I learned, the more I had a desire to learn. And so I just continued to keep reading. And that was all between milking cows and driving truck. My real job. I had an experience of going down to southeast Kansas, well, for a while. And when I went down to southeast Kansas, I'd go through these small little towns. This is way before 400 was. Remember 96? Those of you remember 96? It would go every Tom, Dick, and Harry town. And it would wind and wind. So you got to load, whatever, 25 tons and whatever, you have to slow down. And then you have to speed up. Then you have to slow down. There's no stop signs, really, in most of those towns. They had a few. Every now and then you have a few. But going through Fredonia, holy moly. Anyway, so this is way before 400. So anyway, so you had a lot of time to look around. And you're going slow. But as I was going there through the summertime, this is before I was 22, as I was driving through there, I noticed all these Protestant churches, all these non-Catholic churches had these vacation Bible school thing going. Vacation Bible school. I always kind of wondered, what was that, Well, started asking around vacation Bible school. Well, and I said, how come the Catholic Church doesn't have that? And that's what started itching my brain. In the back of my brain, there was a little itch back there. As Catholics, we need something for our youth. Some sort of vacation Bible school. And so that was starting to itch. I was starting to get more involved in the faith. And I was starting to itch about this whole thing about kids, whatever, during the summertime. All of a sudden, I'm with the priest. I'm already sold out. I already sold out of my business. I'm 22 years old. Going to be 23. I sold out of my business that I was with the family. I'm getting ready to go to the seminary now in the fall, and I went to with my pastor, and we're going to go out to lunch. And he says, "Hey, before we go to lunch, let's see if Sister Mary Frances is doing anything in the chancery. We'll pick her up for lunch, take her out to lunch." And I said, "Sure." She was the head of the religious ed department. As we were walking into this office. She's on the phone. She's giving us the one finger, 1 minute kind of warning there. And she said, sorry, there are no sisters available anymore. And she slowly hung up the phone. And they were asking for sister school. Those of us who lived in rural communities, they used to have sisters go out for 1 or 2 weeks out into the highways and the byways. And they would serve for 2 weeks out there teaching religion. That was the only religion a lot of these kids got out in the ranches and the farms. There's no sisters available. She hung up the phone and she looked at me and she goes, "Bernie, what are you doing the 3rd week of July?" This was the end of June, and I said, "Well, I'm not doing anything. I don't go to school till the middle of August." So I went down to Girard, Kansas. Girard. down at 96, all the way down there. And I taught with 2 IHM sisters. They needed a 3rd sister, but anyway, so I became the 3rd. I put a habit on, and anyway, no. So anyway, I taught 3rd and 4th graders for 1 week. And I had a blast. And this old Monsignor was there, Monsignor Irvin Lampy. He says, Bernie, he's like 800 years old. Bernie, big old guy. He says, I want you back next year. But you got something with these kids. You ought to avail yourself to other parishes. That was the summer of 87. I hadn't gone to school yet, the seminary yet. So by the time of the following Easter, I had 8 parishes that lined out that I was going to go do this Bernie show, Bernie Road show, you know. Had no name yet. It's just the Bernie Road show. And so I went out by myself, and they had their moms or whatever there for this Catholic vacation Bible school. And then the next year after that, I think I had 1 other person with me. The 4th year after that, Miss Catherine, your sister, I roped her in. I'm 21 at the time. I told your mom and dad this, by the way. I said, what in the hell were you thinking of sending your 16-year-old daughter, I think, 16, 15-year-old daughter, with a 21-year-old seminarian to go out and teach this? And then she had a friend of hers. She was 17, I think, and another fella. We formed a team of 4. The guy was maybe 19 years old. I was 21. She was 15. And we needed somebody to deal with like these little people under 4 foot tall. What are they called? Creepy crawly things is what they're called. 1st graders and 2nd graders. We didn't know how to handle those, right? So we had the girls take care of the 1st grade and 2nd grade. And this other guy, John, and I, we did all the older kids. And it was still the Bernie Road show until next year. We called it finally Totus Tuus. And that's another long story. I don't have, is it? Oh, I went a little longer than I thought because I was just doing a warm-up before I talked here tonight. But what was amazing is that in the seminary in 1991, I had a struggle whether or not I should go on or not. I gave God 1 year at a time. One of the blessings that when I sold out with the business, I never, you heard the story before, right? Go sell what you have, give your money to the poor, and come follow me, right? You've heard that? The rich young man. So I sold everything I have, kept my money, and then I said, okay, Lord. So I didn't burn any bridges. All right, didn't burn any bridges. I could still buy in or, get partly in it again. Anyway, so every year that way, I gave God 1 year. Okay, I'll give you this year. And then I gave him, okay, next, I'll give you 1 more year. 1 more year, God. 1 more year, God. So it was 1 year at a time. And so here am I in my 4th year. I'm like, And I'm down in this chapel. You remember it? John Paul II chapel. Tiny little nook. And right behind in this small little chapel named after John Paul II, a big poster there with John Paul, and it had at the bottom of it his motto, his logo, Totus Tuus. And I said, God, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I'll be totally yours through the Blessed Mother. And that's how I started Totus Tuus. So that was the beginning. That was the beginning. And right now, and again, I don't have all the exact figures on it right now, but I believe we hire college students. You have to be going to college, or that age at least. But and going to college, and then when I got out of the program, I was hiring close to 52 teachers. Right now, I think in the summertime, we're hiring close to 400 to 500 some college students to teach this program. And they go in teams of 4. So we have right around 100 to 125 teams throughout the United States. And each diocese in which they serve, the diocese takes on their training, and it takes on their liability, if you will, for them to travel, and they go from parish to parish. And so we serve throughout the Midwest, and as far east as Vermont, and far as north as Toronto, far south as, I think, Tyler, Texas, and Tallahassee. I don't know which one's further south. Tyler south? Oh, further? Okay. And then farthest west is Phoenix, because this bishop that used to be here, he's over there now, Bishop Olmsted. And so he brought it in. So we serve the Midwest primarily, but then and all over. So I think right now we have close to 42 dioceses that are currently operating the program. And we teach anywhere between 15 to 20-some thousand kids every single summer in this Catholic vacation Bible school. All right. Isn't that cool? That kind of fun? Kind of fun. But I have to admit is that if I would have went to Catholic school, I probably wouldn't be here today. Because I probably would have known the Apostles' Creed. You know? So thank God we didn't go to Catholic school. Matter of fact, I was going to go to Catholic school. I was already enrolled in it, but they shut it down. And I asked Dad, why did they close the school? And they said, they heard you were coming, buddy. Yeah, not good, not good. Few people know that I spent my entire fourth grade in a corner. That's why I was worried about this kid over there in the corner. I spent my whole fourth grade there, buddy. Anyway. Do not let anybody look down on you because you're young, Paul says to Timothy. Do not let anybody look down on you because you're young, but you be the example in your faith, in your love, in your conduct, in your speech. You be the example. So God does not care what age you are. You be the example. And the more I work with young people, the more they inspire me. And matter of fact, I get a little bit saddened when I work with young people today because they're so much better than I was at their age. Our young people are far better today, I believe, than I was in my day back when I was a teenager about 10 years ago. We must remember, folks, that God is active in the hearts and the lives of all people, especially our young people. And so when God touches a heart, when God touches a life, He does not ask the age, right? He touches the heart. Before the Lord spoke over the waters and He said, let there be light, He already knew that son or daughter of ours, or grandson or granddaughter. He already knew them. And He knew their heart. So before there ever was the first word spoken, God knew us and He knew them. And that every single heart is called to be open to this person of personal relationship with Jesus Christ, this person of Jesus. And so some would say that we would come to this experience first through our knowledge and then through that experience. But the more I'm working with kids today, it is through the experience first. Then they will have a desire to know. Some would say that it's a Franciscan model is the experience first. Thomistic model would be knowledge first. Then you come, right? Yeah, I'll go with both ways. So when the church was speaking, and they had a synod on evangelization. It started with evangelization. Always thought that was interesting. And then it moved into catechesis. Evangelii Nunciani and then catechesis Tridendi, I think his name was. So what's interesting is that, again, as we come to experience the person of Jesus Christ, we come to know. We have a desire to know Jesus. And frankly, I think that's where I was coming from truly. Because it wasn't just a head knowledge that I was experiencing when I was standing in front of these 12 seventh graders. It was their response to me, that experience that, hey, I'm getting across to them. That said, hey, I think that experience says, I need to go deeper, I need to go further, and I need to go further, longer with these young people. And so I think it was through that experience that I received a desire. Well, let me back up here. What is the mission of the Christian? What is the mission? First of all, I want to start, what is a Christian in the first place? A follower of Christ. What's the Greek word for follower of Christ? Discípulos. That's right. You're brilliant. And that's where we get the word disciple. What is, okay, so you have a follower of Christ. What is the mission of the follower of Christ? Well, what's the mission mean? What's the mission? Exactly right. It's a person who's sent. Comes from the Latin word missio. What's the Greek word for missio? One who was sent. Apostolos. That's where we get the word apostle, right? So to be a disciple and to be an apostle is fulfilling the mission of the Christian. And every single one of us is going to be formed as that disciple of Jesus Christ until our final breath, until we're finally giving up our ghost. We're going to be formed as a disciple. Because it's going from our heart knowledge to the head knowledge, to the head knowledge to the heart knowledge. Bishop Gerber, I love it. He says, Bernie says, sometimes I think the longest distance we can travel in life is from our head to our heart. I don't know if that's original to him, but it stuck with me. To go from our head to our heart. And these young people are looking for that experience. And then, with that experience, I could throw something in there about intellect, right? I could teach them about the creed. I could teach them about the sacraments. But they have to have an experience first. That means they have, and this is what I think that with the Totus Tuus is so successful, is that person is, the teacher is a young person, a college student who's on fire with the faith. And before that person opens their mouth, they're a young person on fire with the faith they're teaching Totus Tuus that year. So before they say anything, before they write anything on the board, before they open a notebook in front of the kids, they're a young person, right? And that the kids are looking at that and saying, maybe I can do that. So before they open their mouth, before they open the notebook, before they wrote anything on the board, they began to evangelize those kids because of a smile, because of a story. And I always tell my teachers, the first thing you do, you tell a story about you and why you are working with Jesus, why you're serving Jesus. Because I said, but they're going to forget your name. They're going to forget who you are. They're going to forget this, but they'll always remember the story. Always remember the story. So that's, I think, the first step in bringing about a disciple of Jesus Christ is sharing the good news of Jesus within our own heart. So when we talk about young people, it is not the future church, folks. Our youth are not the future church in the future. They're the church now. And so if we took a look at all these different apparitions, all these different messages that our Blessed Mother gives to the world, who does she do it through? Old timers like me? No. She doesn't do kids. Why? In 1986, in April of 86, I went to a retreat. I took a weekend off. And I heard for the first time about these kids in Medjugorje. It wasn't the Blessed Mother appearing to them, or allegedly, or whatever, however we want to say that politically correct. I always tell everybody, Medjugorje is not going to be proven by the church. The Medjugorje is going to prove to the church that it's real. Okay, right? It's going to be proven itself. But so these kids, but what struck me about the story was not the Blessed Mother. It was not even her messages. It was that these 6 kids were my age. And that stuck with me. They're my age. And they're talking about getting closer to Jesus. They're talking about getting closer to Mary, and Mary's always pointing us closer to Jesus. And I had to say that kind of experience, was standing in front of the 7th graders, hearing a story about Medjugorje for the first time in 86, that all of a sudden started firing me up. And then I ran across that passage from Paul who says, let nobody look down on you because you're young. The mission of the Christian is ones who are sent, who are formed in the person of Jesus Christ. Not perfectly formed, no, none of us will be. Again, it's our final breath is that we stop that formation. That those who have experienced that person of Jesus Christ, those who have experienced that power, that love, that mercy, that forgiveness. I was a deacon, getting ready to be ordained a priest. I went to confession to my spiritual director. He is a big old Franciscan, bigger than this pulpit here. Anyway, big old guy, Friar Tuck. Friar Tuck. Anyway, so he was a big old guy, and I went to confession to him, and he says, he started laughing. Now, have you ever had a priest start laughing when you give him your confession? That's not fun. It's not fun. And I said, what's the deal, Father? And he goes, Bernie. Now, again, I was a deacon getting ready to be ordained a priest maybe in 2 or 3 months or something like that. He says, you're going to be an excellent confessor. And I said, how's that? He says, because you're such a sinner. All right. So when we've experienced the mercy of Jesus Christ, when we experience the power and the love of Jesus Christ in our own life, and we share that with somebody, and we don't, kick them out because they're a sinner too, that we might be able to say, whoa, I've been there, okay? That we begin to have a greater understanding. We talk about that mercy and that love that we receive in the sacrament of confession, the mercy and love that we receive when we ask the Lord to forgive us, and that mercy and love that we experience, well, all of a sudden we start sharing that with another person. And they begin to experience that mercy and love as well. Sometimes I think, now don't quote me on this, but sometimes I think to the degree in which we have received love and mercy, it will be the degree in which we're able to extend love and mercy. Remember the woman who started crying on Jesus' feet, wiping his feet with her hair? Jesus says, well, ones who sin much, love much. Well, he didn't break the seal of confession when he said that, but it was close, right? So, what I thought was so powerful is that when I'm working with young people, I first have to speak to the experience that they may have. And I share my experience, my story, kind of like I just did today with y'all. Because you're going to forget this handsome fella. Maybe. But you'll know the story. Because again, that mission of the Christian, that Christian is that follower of Jesus Christ. And then that disciple of Jesus Christ, that follower of Jesus Christ has the obligation to go out and share that good news. And most of the time we can share that good news without even opening our mouths. It's with our attitude. It's with our smile. That's one thing I miss. All these kids wrapped up in this little mask thing. I can't see them smile. You know, when you tell a joke from the pulpit, you want to get a response back. And you don't know if they're laughing or not. Matter of fact, they might be frowning. I don't know. So it is a little bit tough when you're preaching, So I just tell them I don't like them and go on. I said, Father, how come you don't like us? And I said, well, you're under 4 foot tall. Okay, so I have a little measuring stick. I took a yardstick. Well, actually, somebody gave it to me. I have a yardstick, and they put 2 yardsticks together. It's 4 foot tall. They wrapped it in all this nice little paper and whatever, and it's called a scary stick. And I said, if you're under 4 foot tall, you're scary. Get away from me. I call them creepy crawly things. Just all that God made on the 6th day, right before he made humanity. Creepy crawly things. Anyway. So I tell them, I'm scared. Well, what happens then is that when I'm telling them they're scary, that they attack me every time they see me. A little reverse psychology. Crazy kids. But anyway. We have a mission to be happy. And that's one of the things I think that the Lord was happy. Because kids do not go to grumpy people. Kids are not attracted. They don't want to go run up and hug a grumpy old grouch. They don't want to go run up and, somebody who's frowning at them. Jesus was happy because he said, let the kids come to me. So again, if we're going to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, if we're going to share that good news, we have to be a little bit happy, right? And that doesn't take any words. It doesn't take any sort of philosophical understanding or theological understanding. It's just put a smile on your dang face, right? And kids will come to you. And they want to share your experience because you're happy. Now, Father's so humble here. I don't want to pick on Father, but he just won the lottery, by the way, the other day down in Louisiana. He's worth $7, $8, $10 million now. And I wish. What's the first thing we do if we have something really great happen to us? I do this with kids, and they go, "What's that?" I had a kid. I was visiting with the parents in a former parish, whatever, visiting with these parents in the kitchen. And the kid comes in, and their kids were playing basketball. The parents were all sitting in the kitchen visiting. And the kid goes, "Hey, can I go call so-and-so?" And mom says, "Yeah, go ahead." So the kid went into this little room, and it was an old school, and went into this room, and he was there, and he was there, and he was there, and he was there. And he's about 9 years old, there, and he was there. Finally, he comes out, and he goes, "How do you work this phone?" Had this thing. That's why I bring kids to the telephone museum, Father. Anyway, so what happens when we're happy? We call people. We tell people about it. Father was just yakking this morning about how he won $8 million, yeah. And what was sad about it is that he's a religious and he can't keep a dime of it. Anyway, sorry, Father. But then as we share that story, someone's going to ask us to go further. Somebody's going to ask us to explain. And then that's where all of a sudden our experience of God in our mind, the knowledge of God in our mind, that's where we need to have that. We have to be equipped with that. And that's why I'm convinced that this is where Catholic education truly comes in. So, just a little aside here. I never have an aside. But those of you who have sent your kids to Catholic school, maybe they left the faith. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, don't give up on them. You be the rock. You be the sturdy foundation, and they might flitter away like a leaf every now and then. But as long as they have that Catholic education in them, you being that rock, when it hits the fan for them in their lives, they're going to come back to a rock. And mom, dad, granny, and grandpa, you got to be there. Be that rock. Because they're going to ask themselves, where have I gone? What has been going on? There will be that example. Most of the times it takes a crisis. So grandparents, especially when you're praying for your grandkids that they might snap out of it and get back to the church, get back to the faith, don't go bail them out when they have a car wreck. Don't bail them out when they have a crisis, because, no, that's what you've been praying for. Hey, Grandma, you did what? And I said, "I'm sorry, We've been praying for you to come back to the faith, and maybe it took that. Especially if they're German children. It takes a car wreck sometimes, but. And so with the mission of the Christian, what is the mission? The mission is one who is sent. That's an apostle. That's the apostolos. The disciple, the Christian, is the disciple. So to be formed as a disciple, to be formed as an apostle, this is the beginning stages of that young person who is coming to the faith. And so if we have them grounded in the heart knowledge and the head knowledge, then all of a sudden when they have an experience or they have a crisis or they have a joyful experience, whatever, it renews something there. It renews something there, so it says, now maybe I need to start practicing the faith now. A lot of times, I love babies. But not just because babies are babies, but because what babies do to moms and daddies. Because, yeah, they got married out of the church. Oh, yeah, a little. And they might even be Catholic school sweethearts. Two Catholic kids run off. They go get married out of the church, or they live together, whatever, and they're doing their thing or whatever. They totally abandon the faith, whatever, and all of a sudden here comes a baby. And they come to Father. Father, can you baptize my baby? And I go, no. What do you mean? And I said, I can't baptize. You have to make a promise. You're going to be asked 3 times in the ritual that you're going to raise this child Catholic. That you have to give me a certain assurance that this child is going to be able to experience the sacramental life of the church. If you're not practicing the faith, if you're not married in the church or living in sin or whatever, you can't give me an assurance that this child's going to live in the faith. So nope, sorry, I can't. And they said, well, what we got to do? I said, well, go to confession, get married. Let's go. Have you asked her to get married yet? Have you engaged yet? And she goes, well, no. And she looks at him. He looks at her. I said, let's go. Let's make it happen. Well, he said, well, Father. I said, now. Right? You've been together for 4 years. Come on, what are you waiting on? You know, is it finances? I'll give you some finance classes, right? Right? Let's go. So a lot of them leave, engaged. But they get engaged and they start the process of getting married. It usually takes about a year. But as soon as they're in a process, well, then we'll get the baby baptized. And that little baby is not just a baby. That little baby is the first evangelizer. That little baby was the first apostle, disciple in that couple's life that they didn't know it, but he just spiritually slapped him across the face. And it's all because of Grandma. It's all because of Grandma. Grandma says, God, I want you to get these kids in the faith. And I don't care what it takes. Grandmas, be careful when you say that. And so all of a sudden, his little baby slaps him across the face and says, I want to be baptized. And some of those couples now, they have 2, 3, 7, 8, 10 kids, whatever. They are fantastic couples. They might have got off on the wrong foot, but they're awesome. Why? Because they experience mercy. They experience the forgiveness of Jesus Christ. And they share that with their kids. And I let them know that they have experienced that, to relish that, to cherish that. And that's what I think is so profound. So for this Christian, a disciple of Jesus Christ, a follower of Jesus Christ, we're going to do that. We're going to be formed and as a disciple till our final breath. It is every single second of our day. Until then, too, we can be that apostle, one who shares our faith, maybe without opening our mouth, and one who is able to explain and defend the faith, maybe without opening your mouth. And I'll close with this. What time do I have, brother? 10 minutes. Oh, good. I have a short story, about 15. When a couple comes to me, and matter of fact, I usually share this story at all weddings and funerals because they're both about the same. When a couple comes to me for a baby to be baptized, and we have the ceremony of baptism, at the very end of the ceremony, we have the blessing of the mother and father. I bring the mother and father from the baptismal font into the center of the church, in front of the altar, that center aisle, in front of the altar, at the bottom of the step, where we receive communion. And I give mom a blessing there. I give dad a blessing there. But I explained this before I get there. I said, the reason I brought you here is because in a few years, that little baby you're holding, it is our hope, it is our desire that she's standing right here, receiving their first communion, right where you're standing, mom and dad. So we are charging you to let this child practice the faith, to know the faith, to receive their first communion. And a few years after that, this child, we're hoping that they're going to go on their own 2 feet, and they're going to confirm everything you and your godparents said today. They're going to confirm everything that you said, standing right here with the bishop for the sacrament of confirmation. The bishop's going to ask them, do you reject Satan, all his works, all his empty promises? Do you believe in God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit? And you confirm that faith. That child will confirm that faith. So it is our hope, it is our desire that you bring them up not only to receive the sacrament of First Communion and receive communion, but also so that they might be able to stand on their own 2 feet and confirm what you did for them today. And it is our hope And I look at the couple and I said, maybe you did this too. But when they're 21 or 31 or 51 and they want to get married, that they come right back to the same spot, right before an altar. Where you're holding little Johnny today, it is our hope that when he's 21, 51, or whatever, that he's going to be able to take on his bride for the rest of his days. It is our hope that when Johnny is 26, 27, 28, 30 years old, and he has committed himself to the service of God, that Johnny will come back before this altar or before the altar at the cathedral with the bishop and dedicate his life to the service of God through the priesthood or religious life. It is our hope, our desire, that this child you're holding right now knows this holy ground that you're standing on well. And then I look at the couples and the parents and grandparents there, and I said, guys, we've all been to a Catholic funeral, have we not? We pause the coffin at the back of the church as it crosses the threshold, before it crosses the threshold into the sanctuary. We pause there for a moment. We sprinkle the coffin with the waters of baptism. We cloak it with the white garment of baptism, the pall, and we bring it to the same Easter candle that's burning right behind us now. So as we come into this church, the baby you're holding, we're going to hope that we depart from the church, from this sacred ground, this holy spot, this holy ground you're standing on. And so like the funeral that I just had this morning, I asked the family to listen carefully to the words that Dad and Grandpa is speaking now. In the silence, listen to his final words. He's inviting all you kids, all the grandkids, to depart from holy ground, to know holy ground, to know the sanctuary of sanctuaries, where we most intimately receive Jesus Christ, most especially in the Eucharist. So I say this at weddings and I say this at funerals. Remember holy ground. This tremendous, tremendous gift that God gives us, and I conclude with this, my third conclusion, by the way. I conclude with this, and that is, let us never look down on the young. We know the Blessed Mother works with the youth. And when the young people have an experience of Jesus Christ, and whenever there is an emotional crisis within our life, that is an open door for us to be that apostle, to share our faith, to explain our faith, to witness to the love and the mercy of Jesus Christ in our life. So when young people have that difficulty, when they have this awareness, when they have this come to Jesus moment, when they have this enlightenment of consciousness, we, moms and dads and grandparents, you are the first responders. You are the first responders for them by witnessing to Jesus Christ in your love, in your mercy, in your forgiveness. And so let nobody look down on you because you're young, we can say to our teenagers. But you be the witnesses. The Lord be with you. May Almighty God bless you all, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. He held up 4 fingers, and I thought he was like, hey, you're done. Sister, welcome back, sister. Thank you for being here. Give her a big round of applause. Thank you, sister.
Now, those of you who are watching from a distance on YouTube, with the channel of Marian News is over half outside the United States. And so tonight I was able to share with you my pastor, and I get to listen to him very often from his sermons. And I feel very blessed because Father Bernie never says anything not important. So we'll start again. Welcome. I have my welcoming remarks here now. I got mostly green lights. Is it on? It's not. You're not hearing well? Okay, I'll do this. So I had mostly green lights. I only ran a couple red to get here. I reprinted this. So you can see me on the YouTube screen, but I can finally see you, some of you. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad I hope to meet you, learn your faces and your names. We wanted to begin this whole conference with some hours of prayer so that this will be a retreat-like experience as we need the Holy Spirit to help us remember all that we're going to learn this weekend. So welcome to Wichita, a great Catholic city, a little windy also. We like to think of ourselves as another Bethlehem where wheat grows, making us a spiritual breadbasket. Everyone who is outside of the Wichita area, please stand up. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That is wonderful. Thank you for making an effort to get here today. And we welcome all our virtual attendants watching from Europe or Australia, the UK, Canada, and some in Africa. And we want to extend a big thank you for our sponsors. Tomorrow you can visit their tables, EWTN, Eighth Day Books, and Casting Nets. There will be additional tables as well with items for sale and many for free. I hope you will enjoy all the goodies in your attendee bags. Now, we had wonderful volunteers, but we had quite a few, and we were kind of rushed, and not everybody got the same instructions. So if you are missing a Holy Face chaplet or a Holy Face booklet or something else that you see somebody else has that you don't have, well, make it known at the registration desk because I'm sure it's somewhere, and we can find that. These are not just typical tourist advertisements in your bags, but an integral part of resources that could be very important to you as a spiritual first responder and to a soul in crisis whom God may put in your path to assist. You will want to save these things with your handbook, which constitutes an enormous collaborative effort. Some speakers will not use slides, so we've included blank paper in the back of the handbook for taking notes. If you need more blank paper, just ask at the registration desk. Many speakers will be referencing books in their talks and in the handbook. Many of these books will be for sale at the Eighth Day tables on Saturday. And you might want to look ahead to Sunday to see the synopsis of those talks because we won't be selling books on the Lord's Day. Tomorrow is your big shopping day. Some are asking who are the Theotokens and who is this, quote, Sister Anne. And I had an interesting question just before him. Who were you before you were a nun? Okay. I had an old teaching sister told me that one of the students said, wasn't your mom surprised when a nun baby came out? We're just born nuns, right? I was born and raised in Wichita. And I guess even though I was a cloister 33 years, I was always the big talker, so they put me at the turn to answer the doors. And Father Bernie says, I've been making up for lost time ever since for the jobs of sight. And I guess some of that goes with our upbringing. My father was responsible for 9 Sonic drive-ins, so as kids, we learned to hustle and to learn to what it is to make your own business and to start all that and to work from a very young age and manage a paycheck and then be told that, well, you manage a paycheck, so you start paying for all that stuff. So, and in Wichita, you really can't go very far unless you have a car, so we saved up early and got a car. So I guess some of this isn't too hard to be out of the cloister. So, but I did experience something in the cloister. I expected to die in the backyard. Not to be buried in the backyard, not to be died back there. But nuns live to 100. They're always the last to go to heaven. So I was very surprised to receive a call within a call to start a new congregation. And this really isn't abnormal. Most congregations were started by somebody who had been in another congregation. The Holy Spirit wants a new charism for the church, and he'll call someone who's had some experience in religious life. But I was in a cloister, and this was for an active order, so I had to get a couple years training. So, and it's normal. It's not like marriage vows, which are, the church just witnesses those vows. That's a sacrament. But the church actually kind of manages religious vows, and they can make and undo them. And so I have all the process. So technically, I'm a lay person. people still call me Sister Ann because they don't remember what my secular name was. I've been a nun so long. And and they know I'm aspiring to be a religious as soon as possible. We have not yet found that lucky bishop who wants to help me start the congregation. I don't know, but I understand that, and I'm kind of glad in a way because so much of the legislation is wrapped around volumes and volumes of French documents, and we're gradually getting those translated, and then we'll be able to cite them in our constitutions. And in this last year, I've acquired 2 people who feel very much called to be a part of this, and one is a priest, and it's not Father Bernie. He wants to be a pastor. But it's another beautiful priest, and he feels very strongly that he's supposed to start the male branch of this congregation. And then you'll see another young lady walking around with a scarf on her head and the same color skirt that I'm wearing, and her name is Sarah, and she's trying to join a place that isn't a convent yet. She's the bell ringer. So mostly what has happened, we're starting the Theotokens upside down. We're starting with the 3rd order first instead of the 1st order. So we have lots of lay people who are very interested, and there's going to be literature on that because Theotokens don't have to make vows. They just have to make their consecration to Mary and promise to work to spread her messages. And there's some literature about that in your bag and on the tables. So, but this conference isn't about Theotokens. This weekend represents part of our apostolate, so we're not here to really talk about ourselves. I just said that to answer some questions. It's very important to stay on schedule because few conferences boast this many speakers and such a wide variety of topics. So we'll ring a bell before each break ends, and this is like musical chairs. When you hear the bell, hurry to your seats because we will be drawing a name for a door prize, and they're nice prizes. And if your name comes up and you are not in your seat, we'll throw it out and draw another name. And we want to give you the opportunity of asking questions. And for the sake of health, we're not supposed to be passing around a microphone like we do for the speakers. So we have printed out slips of paper for you to write your question. And at any point during a talk, you can hold up your paper, and young Eli, our runner, will come to collect it. And your questions will be collated by a person who's designated for that talk and then given to the speaker who will address as many questions as we have time for. Now, those little question cards, they were carefully printed and chopped up, and we have no idea where they are. So we quickly printed some blank ones. So you have to just write your own question. We have a sad announcement. There's already a lost and found announcement. Someone lost a very beautiful red holy face chaplet in the church. If you picked it up not knowing where to turn it in, this is the place. So I'm sure there's no thieves here tonight. They wouldn't be paying to be here. They just wouldn't make any sense. And you were praying in the chapel. So tomorrow morning when we turn on the lights in the church, we'll be there around 7 o'clock for those of you who want to start with the rosary. So everybody kind of look around to see if anything's shining on the floor or something, because that's a very precious chaplet. Okay. Black polish? Okay, black pouch. Oh, it's not going to be shining then. It's just going to be in a dark corner. It might have fallen into your missalette things. All right. Now, because it's Friday, we have to talk about food. The snack bar will be open throughout the conference with bottled water, snacks, and homemade cookies for sale. And these are tables, so you can just enjoy and relax while you're here. Anyone wishing to dine out in the local Old Town Wichita restaurants along with other attendees, please see the menus and the signage at the registration table. We'll be making registrations, I think, mostly for Saturday night for groups of 4 to 8 at 7 different restaurants. Because Wichita is not a flyover place. People come here just to go to our restaurants. Now, our next speaker is from the other side. Many illuminations of consciences happen in some fashion in near-death experiences, even to children. Joseph Cascio has had an experience himself of crossing over and now serves, time out. Is he not here? 5 minutes? Oh, we have a break? We have a break. Oh, okay, musical chairs, remember. All right.